So I took a little break from uploading videos for a little bit and just kind of worked on some crazy personal projects. I'll probably show those in some later videos and talking about the madness and all the crazy work I put in for myself. But I just want to talk about the different characters. So in the A Song of Ice and Fire Kickstarter, they had, I don't know, like 40 characters or something. I don't remember the number, but it was quite a few, and I had gotten all the units done, and I basically just had a box full of characters left to do. And I talked about it in the last video how at least a personal goal of mine is, if not to, use miniatures for parts or bits or just experiments, just to paint them and improve my painting. So the way I kind of went through this was I just tried to paint the best I could. It wasn't to the degree of competition. It was more just like I kept messing with it and messing with it and messing with it until I got a result that I was pretty happy with, but also up to the point where I started getting a little tired of painting the miniature. I don't know if any of you have experienced it, where you're working on something and it's not exactly going right and you make mistakes and you're going back and forth over it. It doesn't have to be any particular technique, you're just trying to make it look decent, and it's kind of frustrating because you're going back and forth and you don't feel like you're not making progress. So for me, I kind of learned just work through it. It's not going to be as good as you want it to be. Well, at least not every instance, but it's better just to get the miniature done and kind of have it on the table. And if you feel like you have the energy to keep working on it again, then I mean, you can just do that. To get to the main idea of the video, I just learned a couple things that I think will help me on my journey. Will definitely help me on my journey, and it can help you on yours if you approach painting all these characters with the right thinking. So the first point was just color schemes, right? I've made, those are probably my most popular videos, is kind of the general color schemes and techniques I use when painting kind of the main, or one of the main types of units for Starks or Lannisters or something like that. So when you have individual characters, you can kind of give them some personality, because like Eddard Stark, he was one of the latest characters I painted. You don't have to just give him the same colors as the same, units in the field. It's just unnecessary. You can experiment and try different browns and all of that stuff. You don't have to, cut corners, and you can find, weird colors and things that, you might not have picked because you're just following whatever guide. You're just like, use brown right out of the bottle. But if you experiment and you think, there's a couple layers to this, right? Where you can find colors that you can mix easily, just certain combinations that work, or just colors you wouldn't think would work in that instance, like some kind of orange or some green, where you think, well, the Starks don't have anything to do with that. That's black and blue and gray and all that. But it kind of, when you actually experiment with the colors and you mix things on your palette, it really, especially for characters, it really helps you develop, or at least it helped me develop this kind of feeling like these colors and these unique combinations can make my force look much more interesting. Because one sensation I really felt was I was using Vallejo flat brown for like almost everything. Browns, diluting things, or desaturating things. It was just like, yeah, it's nice to have a color as a staple, but sometimes you need that kind of dynamic, you know, little tweaks. And, you know, you can mix in an orange, not to actually make something very orange, but just to make it less blue or less green or whatever. So that was one way of kind of figuring out what kind of colors I liked. And that's the thing is, you can find a color that you mix together and you really want to use it for army. Well, all you have to do is just find a pot or a bottle of paint that is pretty similar to that color, and then you can just, you know, use straight out of the bottle for your army painting. So the mixing doesn't have to be something you have to do for, you know, 100 miniatures, but you just do it on 1 or 2 characters, and if you like the results, you just transfer to the army by buying that specific paint. So that's, I think, is pretty handy. And another thing when you're determining color schemes is you can just treat the character like a test model, right? So the nice thing about that is you have a character who might have different colors to the ones you use in your final army, which doesn't matter. You progress in painting, so maybe you paint a single sworn sword in whatever colors and you don't really care for it, and then you have to repaint it. Well, if you just do that with, you know, like Roger Cassell, some kind of character that you just kind of want to get through, I mean, it's okay. It's okay that, you know, you're not excited to paint every single character. You can just say, yeah, the scheme's okay, but it's not what I would use for my army. Then, you know, you get the progress done, you figure out what kind of paints and colors you want to use and you don't want to use. So I think that's a win as well. So the second advantage for using this technique is that you can improve your level of painting. One of my latest figures, actually the figure I just painted before making this video, was the Hound. This is the version without his helmet, and he's got his sword kind of raised up like that, and he's in full plate. So I decided, I've dabbled with a non-metallic before. I've done that video with the mountain, and I've done a little, as you can see with these characters I'm showing now, like Roose Bolton or Eddard Stark. I kind of did non-metallic light. It's really like shaded gray. But what I did was I watched some videos and I really wanted to push the boundaries of my ability to paint non-metallic metal, and I think it came out better than I expected, but still worse than I wanted. And that's the thing, right? Is the level you paint at right now is not magically going to become the expert painter because you watched a video and now you just put brush to model, right? You have to paint models and really seriously try and experiment and improve and use the techniques you watched. And what that means is you're going to make mistakes and you're not going to be at the level you want. Or at least I am not going to be at the level I want to be. But as I look through all the different miniatures I've painted, at least the characters, I can see this progression where I'm starting to understand how to paint skin, and it gets worse and better and worse and better because I'm trying different techniques and different ways of layering it and applying it, and using undercoats and glazing and all of these different techniques. I'm slowly adding on to really just improve the final product. And I have to say, it doesn't always work and improve in every aspect, but the general trend I'm seeing is I'm starting to kind of get a better understanding of what what painting with miniatures is like, right? When you're painting with armies, it's just not the same as just taking a character, really focusing on what your paint consistency is like, how you're moving your brush, are you sitting comfortably, are you able to control your brush really well, all of those things. I'm really trying to develop that, so when I am not really focusing as much, I'm still at a higher level. Then the third point is focusing on characters and starting to improve your painting level also helps speed up the army painting process, right? You're learning how your tools work, right? What kind of paint consistencies come out of the bottle, what that really means when you're working with it. All of these different techniques, when you really start to get a handle on them, it really teaches you why when you're army painting, you're getting the results you're getting. And so when you understand things at a higher level, then you can skip corners and simplify things and really bang out armies quite quickly. Eddard Stark was one of the latest models I painted, and it went really fast. I mean, some of these models I just messed with and agonized over, and I felt like I was just, painting in circles. So it really, all of that struggle though, really built up to that point where I finished it in a couple hours or something like that. It was really a short amount of time, and I think it was one of my best figures yet. And even though looking back, I can see what kind of faults and what kind of ways I can improve, it's still, that made me realize that when you get better at something, you become very comfortable with it, and then it's very easy to just apply it, right? So the wrapping on his sword, I was really bad at doing straps and belts and kind of painting that to make it look decent. But after painting all of these characters and really trying to make them look good, it was so easy for me to just kind of apply all that unconscious nonsense into something that looked good as a final result. I hope you can see how using this mindset can really improve your hobby in multiple ways. One thing I really appreciate is how I finally followed people's advice. And back a while ago, they were saying, use a wet palette, use a wet palette. And I was like, I don't know if I want to. I finally got a wet palette. I'm like, I cannot paint with anything but a wet palette anymore because it's just such a useful tool. When, someone like Vince Venturella keeps saying, make sure you differentiate the parts of your miniature, dark lines between different sections, so it's very easy to tell what's separate and what's supposed to be kind of together. I wasn't really listening to that. Now that I did it, I'm like, it makes so much sense. When everyone's yelling contrast, 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 and you really say, I'm going to use all near white, and I'm going to really push my darks and really push my lights and really look at black and white photos and yell at yourself, and you say, it's all gray, it has to have a greater contrast, and you apply that, and then you see, oh my goodness, it does look better, it does improve, and you have to be sort of braver, right? I think that can really help you in so many ways be so much more satisfied. I mean, there's kind of a nice feeling you get when you finish a unit and you say it's painted, it's based, it's ready for the table. That's a really nice feeling, but it can be dampened, right, when you don't do as good of a job as you like. But when you really feel in that moment like, man, I didn't think I could do that, I didn't think I could pull off that technique, that feels so much better. So I would say try and hit that even greater feeling. Not just finish the models, but exceed your expectations. And it might sound difficult, but just do what the freaking tutorial tells you to do. Maybe not listen to my stuff word for word, because my painting is still improving, but the people who really know what they're talking about, you just listen to what they say and you experiment. You can disagree, but at least try it. Like, honestly, try it. And I found out that, my goodness, you can improve so quickly if you just listen to what they say. And instead of watching 20 tutorials on non-metallic metal, you watch one you really like, you really pay attention to it, you really think about each step, you apply each step properly when you paint a model. It will be completely different. You watch 20, you forget what they say, and you don't become a better painter. But you actually apply it, you actually have a successful model, and that sticks with you. And I think that's more important, is you're painting characters, you improve, you use new techniques, you experiment, you get the 3 advantages I talked about before, but most of all, it just sticks with you. And I think that's really critical when it comes to having long-term improvement and being a more efficient painter and being satisfied with your work.